depend on others to make you happy?
No, I can find my own ways to make myself happy, but I think other people can add to it.
I'm more of a loner, you know. I do what I gotta do to make myself happy, you know, because other people, they're not always gonna be there for you.
Not everyone's gonna be there for you all the time.
I can be happy on my own, but I don't want to be alone all the time, so other people that I'm with can just add to everything that I enjoy, you know.
Being with others is fun, I guess, so it helps to be happy.
Unfortunately, I have to say sometimes yes, but I have to rely on myself most of the time, I know, to make myself happy, because no one else will.
You can make yourself real happy, but you always need outside sources, like a lady friend, or nowadays, you know, significant other, or your family too.
I'm a happy person on my own.
Why don't you depend on anyone else to make you happy?
You can't depend on other people to make you happy. You're the only one that really can.
You can't depend on other people to make you happy. You have to be what you are.
Do you think if you find happiness in romance, it'll make you a happier person? Why or why not?
Oh no, man, I've been with the same girl for 7 years, and we not happy. And it doesn't matter. The best thing to do is do it by yourself. Find happiness in what you do and what you like believing in, because other people can't always bring it to you. They might end up hurting you more.
Love is one of the things that make you happy.
A lot of people will not experience true happiness till they find the right woman.
Yeah, I mean, if you're happy in the romance, then it should make you a happier person.
If you're happy with your romance, you know, you should be pretty much happy with your life, or that part of your life, at least.
Yes, just because that's what you were meant to do.
No, you don't need someone in your life to be happy. Of course it's a plus, but you don't need it.
It makes you happy, but it doesn't always last for long, so you have to be happy on your own and independent.
Where do you find happiness in your life?
Do you find it in the company of others, through relationships, friends, and family?
Often, when we're with our friends, we're happy. So we make the mistake of thinking it's the people around us who make us happy.
Maybe they make us smile or remind us that we are loved. But if we depend on them to do whatever it takes to make us happy, we could be greatly disappointed.
Depending on others for happiness. That's what we'll be talking about today. Hi everyone, I'm Jack.
And I'm Catherine.
And this is Realfaith TV.
The teens on the street seem to agree that you have to be happy with yourself before being able to have a real relationship with others.
We'll talk with them more a little later in the show, as well as meet our studio guests.
But first, let's go to our spotlight guest Danielle, who has struggled with being too dependent on others and their opinions.
And how these behaviors led her to rely on others to provide her with a sense of completeness.
There's plenty of times in my life that I would depend on somebody else to make me happy. I used to be very much like a slave to other people's opinions. I would be in a relationship with someone, and whatever they saw me as, that's what I saw me as. So I was constantly trying to do different things to get this person to see me in maybe a better light, so I would feel better about myself. I remember plenty of times where I ended up doing things I didn't want to do just because I was like, well, maybe if I do this, then they'll appreciate me. And if they appreciated me, then I would appreciate myself. I had a lot of, struggles with that just because I was so obsessed with other people liking me or other people thinking I was this or that. And it always kind of led me down the wrong road. It would get to the point where it's like I was like addicted to this person. Like, this person has to like me, this person has to do that. And if they don't, I'm nothing. I never felt good enough. I never felt worthy or like I had any value. But then I realized that, worshiping a person or worshiping something besides God, it's always going to leave you longing. You're never going to feel complete. You're not whole until, you depend on God. You have something that's always there, something stable to depend on. Other people's opinions they just don't matter anymore.
I definitely can relate to what she was saying at the beginning because, she was very dependent on what other people thought about her. And I know I'm the same way. I'm kind of like a social chameleon. Like I'll be different depending on what group of people I'm hanging out with, because I have a couple groups that I hang out with, and I'll tell different jokes, wear different clothes, like depending who I'm going to be hanging out with. So I know I'm definitely the same way. I like what people think about me and everything.
Yeah, me too. I feel that you almost have to in high school to survive in any sort of social way. But I remember when I was going into my sophomore year, all of a sudden I just cast away some of the things that were really dragging me down, like some friends that I knew I was way too dependent on their opinions and stuff. And I remember feeling like I was really becoming my own person.
Let's see what our guests think about this.
They are John, Vince, Jessica, Kira, Jenna, and Jen.
So, do you or does anyone you know feel incomplete without other people? Do you rely on them to make you feel happy?
Like, I know for me, I think like it's almost human nature to want to fit in with other people and see what other people think about you, just because we always want that affirmation from other people. I know for me, I'm not overly dependent on other people, but I think we all have that level that we want of like people liking us.
Yeah, man's a social animal.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. That's what happens, especially during your adolescence, when especially you're trying to fit in with people that you've just met or things like that. Everyone tries to change themselves and tries to fit in. So I agree, but it can cause a lot of problems down the road.
Yeah, like I went into a new high school, so I kind of had to change how, like I felt like I had to change how I was, even though I really didn't need to. And I realized that once I started making friends and everyone was in the same position as I was.
Yeah, you have people that, rely on you for things. They come to you, like the song Lean on Me, I'll be your friend. So, you have people come to you for advice or things like that.
In the Bible, Jeremiah talks about where we put our trust, saying,
Cursed is the one who trusts in man, who depends on flesh for his strength.
He is telling us that if we put our trust in the people around us to make us complete and happy, we will be disappointed.
Because no one can be the source of our life except for God.
Next, Danielle talks about her experience with a friend who was overly dependent on others to solve his problem.
And how she helped enable him to seek out his own answers.
When I was going through a tough time, and I remember specifically one person being like, you can do this, you don't need my help. And I remember at first I was a little mad, and I was like, I'm coming to you, I need your help, like I really need it. And I remember them just telling me over and over again, Danielle, you can do this, I'm here for you, but I really believe you can do it. That boost of confidence helped me grow up, and I can't thank them enough now for just showing me that they love me enough to let me do it on my own. I have a friend who used to be very dependent on other people to make them happy. He constantly, whenever he needs something, he always asked somebody else. He was running from one person to the next saying, I need you to help me with this, I need you to help me with that. And I remember at first talking to him, I was like, oh, this is really good that he's asking for help with stuff. And I didn't realize that our relationship was sort of like a take relationship. He was never really giving anything back. And I remember one night specifically, I really needed advice about something. He's like, I'm too busy right now, I can't really help you out. Okay, like I've always been there for you, I don't understand. And I remember me and my friends got together and we made a decision. We should start saying no's to small things that he asked for, and we did. Little by little, we kept saying, well, we think you could do that on your own, or, you're really capable of doing that. For him just to feel that independence and just feel so happy with himself, it made all of us, me and all my friends, just so much happier, because we just realized that, saying no, it's not always, the wrong option. Sometimes saying no is a better option than just saying yes all the time. It is difficult to say no to a friend in a time of need. You want to be there for them, but sometimes the best way to be there for them is to let them figure it out for themselves. You have to think about, what's the best way I can show this person I love them? Is it to just, try to solve their problem for them, or to start to get them to solve their own problems? You can help people grow up, and you can help them, advance with their life by making them more independent.
I guess sometimes saying no can help people who need constant reassurance to break the habit.
Have you ever had to say no to someone who was too needy, or break up a friendship in order to help another person become more independent?
Definitely. There are some people who just they want you to be their only friend, and you just want to say, no, I have other friends, I have other things to do. You're my friend, but you need to do something else, spend time with other people. So sometimes you just have to do that.
I completely agree. There's some people that everyone's had to deal with who feel like they're nothing without you, and nothing without your constant attention and your constant input into their lives, and they can't function a day without you.
Sometimes I'll have friends who will ask me to help them help other friends, so they look to me like, well, you're closer to them, maybe you can talk to them, it's like, make me the middleman.
Like, I know for me, there's this friend I have from youth group, and there's sometimes where our friendship became to the point where like she'd call my cell phone and like either I'd be busy or I didn't hear it. So if I didn't pick up my cell phone, she'd try again. If I still didn't pick up, she'd try my house, and then keep alternating back and forth until I finally picked up. And it's just like, you know, I thought to make her a better person, if I just told her, listen, you can't call me, maybe that'd make her a better person. She'd stop depending on me like that.
I actually had a friend who, it was really strange what she would do, but she would find one friend that she really wanted to be like. She would spend all of her time with her, or as much as she could, and kind of emulate the person's actions. She would dress the same way, she'd be all of a sudden into the same things, and then she would go on from friend to friend, and it would take like about a year for her to get bored with one person, and then she would just go on to the next. But I tried to retain our friendship throughout these changes she was going through, and at the end I didn't really know who she was. While some types of dependency can be unbalanced and lead to emotional problems, it's important to realize that relationships are natural. In fact, they're necessary.
Our friends and family are important in our lives, and we share both the joys and the hardships with them.
They can also help us to find the best of who we are.
Friends and family encourage us to find our gifts and talents and nurture us while we journey towards our authentic selves.
Next, Danielle discusses both healthy and unhealthy types of dependency,
and how her experiences helped her to recognize these behaviors in others as well as herself.
There's sort of two types of dependency. There's the healthy kind and the not so healthy kind. The not so healthy kind is sort of what I used to do all the time. You're struggling with a situation and you go to somebody else and you're like asking them for help, but you're not just asking for help, you want them to fix it for you. And it's constantly, every single time you have a problem, you always go to somebody with it, and you never do anything by yourself because you just don't want to. And the other kind, the healthy kind, is recognizing that you need help sometimes and asking for it. And I also struggled with that eventually because I was scared. I was like, well, I used to ask for help too much. I used to depend on people too much. So now maybe I shouldn't at all. And that's also a big mistake. You definitely do. You need people in your life. You need your family. You need your friends. You need God. That healthy dependency is, hey, you know, do you have any advice about such and such thing that I'm struggling with? The kind of dependency that's saying, you know, hey, I recognize that I can't do this on my own, and I recognize that I do need help, but I don't want you to do it for me.
I know oftentimes some of my friends will come to me for advice, but I think the best advice you can give one of those people who's looking for your own affirmation of what they're trying to figure out is to tell them to think about it themselves. Really just take time to realize what you actually want to do in this situation and stop looking for the opinions of others to make your decisions.
Yeah, I have some experience with clingy people. You know, I was going out with this one girl who was really clingy. We would hang out like 5 hours a day in like a day on the weekend, and then she'd want me to call her and talk for 2 hours, and we would talk about nothing because we were hanging out all day, and I didn't really see the point of it. And finally I had to kind of like tell her, you know, I think we're gonna have to end this because you're getting a little too attached to me, you know what I'm saying? So how do you guys try and keep your relationships healthy, not placing unreasonable expectations on the other person to keep you happy?
Well, like what you just said, your story, the like exact same thing would happen to me. There would be this guy and like we'd hang out, then he'd call me every night. I'm just like, I have other stuff to do. Back off a little bit.
Exactly.
And so eventually, now it's like better, but it was crazy at one point.
Yeah, I try not to smother my friends. You know, I keep my friends separated. Like I don't have all of my friends in one group so they don't start, you know, getting dependent on each other. I want my friends to relate to each other, but I don't want them to all say, well, if I can't get a ride here, I'll get a ride from them, or, you know, start expecting things from you. Like there's a level of expecting things from people, but you don't want to get over expecting.
Well, like I went through a phase in middle school when I was really dependent on other people. Like I always needed to be around someone, or I was like, oh my gosh, I look like a freak, like if I'm standing somewhere alone. So like, you know, my friends kind of talked to me and they were like, you gotta relax, you're not a loser. So when people start becoming dependent on me or others, I kind of tell them, you know, you gotta relax and not be too dependent.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that the only person we can always be truly dependent on is Christ. I mean, anybody, whether it be friends or family, even family members who take care of you, there comes a point in time where there are certain things you have to do for yourself. And just when you look at relationships with the eyes of faith, it helps you put things into perspective and just see things the way that God intends them to be.
While spending time with your friends is great, it should be something that lends itself to letting you be you.
Pope Benedict XVI tells us in his encyclical, God is Love, that happiness comes through authentic self-awareness.
He says that love brings ecstasy, not in a moment of intoxication, but rather as a journey towards an authentic self-discovery and indeed the discovery of God.
Our lives can be just that, in taking the journey to find out what our purpose is in life.
We can find happiness within ourselves and with a relationship with God.
Even a love that will make us ecstatic.
Let's go back to the teens on the street and see where they find purpose and happiness in their lives.
Where do you find happiness in your life?
Happiness? I'm an athlete, so probably on the athletic field.
Through friends and family and activities.
With my boyfriend, with my friends, with my family.
I go to my friends, or I watch movies.
Just like seeing like what you're gonna do tomorrow, I guess.
Going to like the beach and stuff. I like boating. Friends, like enjoying what I do.
Right here, Seaside, this is happy to me. It's a lot different from Union City and the bricks and the streets. It's a lot different out here. You could just let your mind go, you know?
Where do you believe true happiness comes from? True happiness comes from within yourself. You're the only one that can really, you can only get it from yourself.
Your heart.
Art.
Oh man, true happiness comes from within yourself.
Within.
I think from your heart and from what you desire, and from attaining that desire, I think you become happy.
I think happiness comes from doing things you love and being around people you love, and just everything that you want to do, and like if things are going your way, then you're gonna be happy.
Inside yourself.
Yeah. Why's that?
If you're not happy with yourself, you're not going to be happy with anyone else.
Charles Schulz, the creator of the Peanuts comic strip, once said, "Happiness is a warm puppy."
While it's true that happiness can be shared with a puppy or with a friend, it really comes from a place deep within our souls when we are at peace with God.
It's not about having what you want, but about wanting what you already have and learning to be grateful.
Let's go back to our spotlight guest Danielle, where she discusses how Christ's love brings her true happiness.
And how prayer helps her to become more independent as a person.
Someone's faith definitely can bring happiness in someone's life. I mean, in my own personal life, I can just give so many different accounts of being just so low, so upset before I had a relationship with Christ. And it's like a 180-degree shift since I've started that relationship. The most important point is to remember that God loves us unconditionally, and He calls us, His perfect, His precious children. And for us to really experience that love, that's where the faith can come in and bring you that true happiness. And if you just follow what God asks you to do, I think in the end, it does make you truly content with your life. I like to say that, God's my daddy, and I say that, prayer is like calling home every day, just to have that little one-on-one conversation with Him. God always provides for me that advice, the comfort, the hope, the love, just everything I could ask for. And that's what makes me happy, knowing that I can always have that in Him. Every time I reach out to Him, He's always going to be there. Prayer is definitely a huge part of becoming more independent as a person, achieving that personal growth. It's like whenever you're struggling, it's something you can always do. It's something you can always go to God and be like, listen, I'm having a really hard time with this, and I'm afraid to go to my friend. Maybe they won't help me out, and then I'll get more beaten down over it. But when you pray about it, it's kind of just like, God, I'm placing this in your hands. I can't do this on my own. And you just give it to Him, and He'll take care of it. It helps you in two ways. It helps you become more independent, but it also helps you deepen those relationships with the people around you.
I liked what you said about God loving you unconditionally, because I feel like, especially when you're a teenager, it's hard to love yourself unconditionally. And I think that's what you really have to almost aspire to, in the sense, so that people can really come into your life and you can handle it healthily.
So, how about you guys? How does your faith bring you happiness?
I agree with what Danielle said. Following what God wants you to do in your day-to-day life, in the end result, you will be happy.
And God is always there for you. You can depend on Him because you know He's going to be there and you know He's going to help you.
Doesn't matter what friends are there or who's not around. You always know He's always going to be there. It's unconditional, like she said.
And the other thing too, I know especially that I always take comfort in is, You could do something that nobody on earth, family or friends, would like you for, but God is always there for you. He might not be happy with the action you did, but he's always there to support you, and he's the only one we can truly be dependent on.
And his forgiveness is always there for you. That's like another really good thing that God has, that sometimes friends aren't always so understanding. God will always forgive you.
And when you realize how much he loves you, like that just changes things. Like how can you not be joyful? Like when you realize that you have someone who just loves you more than life itself and who will always be there for you no matter what. I mean, that just doesn't give you happiness. Happiness can be fleeting, but that gives you joy, a true and lasting joy that's eternal and comes from within.
I know for me, this is going to sound like a little weird, but being dependent on God, that dependency is the one thing that doesn't take away from my independence, you know? It's the one thing that I can depend upon, but at the same time retain like my independence and individuality, you know? It's the one thing in my life that I can really just go to, and then at the same time, you know, I'm keeping myself and I'm being who I am.
Sometimes we think that having what others have will make us happy.
We do anything to have a best friend to do everything with, a great girlfriend, or even cool parents.
We might think happiness comes from being naturally pretty, smart, or athletic.
We may even think that happiness comes from having other people like us or look up to us.
Sometimes it can seem like others around us have what it takes to be happy, when we just seem to fall short.
But all these things are fleeting. They're here today and gone tomorrow.
So, how is the happiness you get from buying a new iPod or a new car different from the happiness that comes from God?
That's what we ask the teens in the street.
Let's check it out.
When I get like something I want, like an iPod or a car or something, I almost feel like greedy, like spoiled, and I'm just like, yes. But when I feel happiness from God, it's more inner and more like spiritual. So I definitely get an immediate effect with those big prizes like cars and iPods right away. That's an awesome feeling. But happiness from like God lasts a while. You feel it, definitely.
I think with getting an iPod or a new car or something materialistic like that, I think you want it more because other people also want it, like other people have it, so it's something that you want. But by taking something from God, I think it helps you as a person instead of just a materialistic item. So
I don't know, it's a different feeling, like, because it's not materialistic, so it's inside yourself more than it would be like buying something.
I think it's a different kind of satisfaction. I really do think that the materialism is just like materialisticness, whatever it is just a temporary thing, and you can go through the stages and just be like, oh, I want this, want that. But what you can get is it out of a relationship or whatever from God is a satisfaction that like lasts.
God brings happiness because, like, in a way, he's always there for you, you know. There's no, like, he can't be like, oh, sorry, I'm busy right now, you know. So, like, in a way, it's like, it's a support that you know that he's always there in a way. Usually, like, when I go to church, you know, it just gives me a chance to, like, you know, relax, you know, forget about my troubles. So it brings me, like, comfort that way because I can just forget about everything else that's going on in my life right at that moment.
I know I'm really materialistic because, you know, I have a couple jobs and everything, but what am I working for? A car, a laptop, stuff like that. Like, I just got this laptop, bought it for myself, and, you know, my parents were like, are you sure you need this? I was like, yes, I need this thing, and it's going to make me happy, and it's going to be great. And it made me happy for a while, but now it's kind of like, you know, it's my laptop. I've had it for a while now, so I guess the rush you get from getting something new that you really wanted kind of fades after a while. So,
that's true.
Yeah.
Have you ever been convinced that some possession or some person would make you happy?
Yeah, especially with like things like video games. The media will tell you that you should buy this, you know, and I'm trying to think, I think it was the GameCube. When it came out, I was like, oh, I have to have this. This is going to be fun. The advertisements were all 3D and everything. I get it. I played for a couple months. I have not touched that in about 2 or 3 months. It's just sitting there collecting dust.
Well, I was totally convinced that, like, getting a spot in, like, this one show that I tried out for would make me so happy. Like, I was convinced it was going to be, like, my big break and stuff like that. And, you know, I didn't get the spot in the show. Like, the director called and she's like, no, not this time. And I was upset. But after I didn't get it, I realized it wasn't as big a deal.
People are always like, oh, you need the hottest boyfriend to make you happy. So, like, in your mind, like, you see this guy, you're like, all right, he's mine. I'm going to get him. But really, like, if you just love yourself, that's all that matters. So
Yeah, I remember when I was in junior high, I definitely wasn't one of like the in crowd, and I felt like I would be happy if I felt like I fit in with everybody else. But around the time that I made my confirmation, I realized that the reason I was so unhappy when I was trying to be like everyone else is because that's not what God was calling me to be. He was calling me to be unique and set apart because he had a special plan for my life, like he has a special plan for everyone.
In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus teaches the Beatitudes. He blesses those who have little in the way of possessions, but have everything they need to be truly happy.
Happy are the clean of heart, for they will see God. Jesus looks into the hearts of the people who hear his word.
They are meek and humble, poor and merciful, thirsty for what is right and more. Jesus tells them to rejoice and be glad.
This is the way to happiness. Not having the most friends, or a date for prom, and not sharing the neighbor's swimming pool or cuddling a warm puppy.
Happiness comes from within us, and God, who is never changing, shows us how to find it.
Have you struggled with being too dependent on other people or things for your own happiness?
We'd like to post your story on our website.
The address is www.realfaithtv.com.
Or you can call us at 609-406-7402.
And we'll leave you with this final thought.
St. Augustine wrote, "My heart is restless until it rests in you, O God."
Another way that some have expressed the same sentiment is to say that we're born with a God-shaped hole in our hearts.
It is a space for God alone. Until we recognize what it is, we try to fill it up with other things, with possessions, activities, other people.
But nothing else fills the hole. Ultimately, nothing but God will satisfy our longing.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on
Real Faith TV. God bless.